Steve, Steelers, Eagles.
Ooh.
Battle of the Keystone State. I was there. I was not alone. Everybody wanted to see if Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown have buried the hatchet. Is there a problem with the passing offense? Oh boy. This was an opportunity for Jalen Hurts and for Nick Sirianni, I think.
Yes.
To show their intangibles, if you will.
I remember you forcing me into choosing. Who did you trust more? And I said I trust Mike Tomlin more. I need to bring the same energy. I still trust Mike T. I tell you who I don't trust. That damn Russell Wilson. Googly moogly. That boy was out there struggling.
He was.
I mean, he was on that, I'm talking about struggle bus. He was over there. He was driving. His GPS was gone. His blinker didn't. His engine light was flashing. It was a struggle, man.
Yeah, I caught a lot. I talked to a lot of people while I was there. We're going to talk Steelers, Ravens a little bit later this week. So for your Russell Wilson struggle bus, and Steve can continue to go on about that bus or lack thereof mobility. We'll talk about them in Baltimore, who wins that division. But to stick with Philadelphia, what I gathered was this. This was going to happen at some point. Brandon Graham's the one who maybe just broke the dam open. There's enough talent on this team, Steve, that you can't feed all those mouths at the same time. I was thinking about this while I'm in that locker room. It's like Dallas Goedert's a top 7 tight end in this league. You got A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have Saquon Barkley. Hell, Kenneth Gainwell is a pretty damn good running back.
Yes, he is.
And you have Jalen Hurts running the whole show with an extremely talented offensive line. You're not going to get the ball to all these guys. And what's happened is the run game was so good during this stretch, they continued to lead on the run game, and targets went down. And the passing game did have some issues they wanted to work out. I was out with a bunch of buddies the night before the game because Philly's home for me, so about 10 guys I grew up with. And I just pictured all of them saying, Steve, if Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown were getting 10 targets apiece during this win streak, you know what everybody in Philadelphia be saying?
What?
Yeah, why'd you pay Saquon Barkley all that money? Why'd you give him all that money if you weren't going to give him the ball? Right? Like that would have been everybody I grew up with. You know, so there was eventually going to be a part where this kind of broke. And that's kind of what I gathered from talking to people in that locker room was that. And then the second part is...
Hold up. A.J. Brown and the Slim Reaper have not had that type of game since 2022.
Yep.
That where they both had a touchdown. Both had over 100 yards. And that's saying a lot. That's obviously over that 2-year period. What has changed? Coordinators, philosophies, players. And so understanding that there's always, when you add, there's going to be a subtraction somehow. And how it plays out, sometimes fans don't realize it's about putting the pieces together to win the football game. Not put the pieces together to have a statistical juggernaut, because we see that in Miami.
Great point.
Miami had a statistical juggernaut, what was that, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago? Tyreek Hill was on the precipice of having over 2,000 yards. They scored 70 points on the Denver Broncos. But yet Tua went down. A lot of unforeseen circumstances happened, and they struggled and limped into the playoffs. So sometimes you have to be able to say, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to, do you want to eat or do you want to snack? But the problem is when you eat and you feed someone else, you need to give them snacks, but you can't starve them, because in this day and age, and especially if you're starved to wide receivers, they get hangry and they don't go quietly. They standing out there about 20 yards by themselves, and they start to imagine and think and daydream and nightmares. And they start to think, and their careers start flashing in their life, and they start to get upset. It's not envy. It's, hey, yo, bro. Oh, y'all don't fool with me? Well, I don't fool with y'all either. And all of a sudden, you don't start getting a guy involved, and then when you need him in the third and fourth quarter, he's sitting on the bench like this. Please.
But Steve, I think that's why what happened here, when I talk to people in Philadelphia, are almost happy it went down this week. The way Brandon Graham came out and said it, there's some people in the building, to my understanding, that are like, kind of glad the dam burst. I'm kind of glad it's out there, because what ended up happening was the squeaky wheel got the grease. Like, A.J. Brown, talking to him after the game, he was like, I'm glad I said something. And I had no ill will towards anybody saying something, but we needed the passing game to be better. And you know what? Me speaking out and everybody else saying it, he goes, first off, I wasn't saying I need touches. I wasn't saying I need the ball. He was saying our passing game.
Which is true.
Which is true. And he said, guess what? I wasn't the only one in the locker room saying it. Maybe I was one that was crucified for it. But I found out everybody in the room knew that the passing game was not where it could be. But to find a way to come out, say something. Brandon Graham addresses the team on Wednesday. Nick addresses the team on Wednesday. To my understanding, AJ says something, Jalen says something. They move forward. And the rest of the week was about how do we make the passing game better. There were extra meetings. There were extra film sessions. There was a lot of extra work put in between wide receiver coaches, wide receivers, that passing game, and finding a way to make it work.
That's good. I love that.
Maybe addressing an issue is a big thing, right, Steve? Like you address the issue and you go out there and you find a way to make it work. The part that I want to ask you about is this, and I thought about this when AJ was talking to a massive group of people at his locker. He is the one that took the brunt of this controversy in a sense, right? When Devontae Smith hasn't been happy, nobody in that room has been happy with the way the passing game's gone. And I was thinking about you. I mean, I always am, Steve.
Oh, thanks.
I was thinking about you when AJ's talking, going, what's on your shoulders as a number one? What's going on? James Palmer here. And let's get real for a second. You see the underdog graphics flying in and out of the show 89 with Steve Smith and myself. Well, you're probably wondering, what are these? Well, what they are is it gives you an opportunity to participate, to start playing. You can use the promo code UD89. You can scan the QR code and you can start playing instantly. Dive right in and you can win $1,000 bonus cash like that. You just got to pick higher or lower. So remember, scan that QR code. Use that promo code UD89. What we do here at 89, we give you analysis, we give you breakdowns, we give you the news. We love that you're here. We love that you're watching us and hanging out with us. But now, when you do this, you get an opportunity to find out if we actually know what we're talking about. What are the added things you have to deal with when you're the one?
Well, one, what you deal with is you are expected to carry the weight. And when things don't go well, media-wise, people are always referring to you. They come to your locker. When you have a rough day, when you don't do something, they come to you. When something's not going right, they come to you. But when everything is going right, they go to all the other people. So being a number one wide receiver is kind of like being the firstborn. When the poop rolls downhill, you get it. When pop or mom is mad, when the dishes and the chores are not working or not being done and checked off, well, it may not even be your week to do the chores. You may be doing, hey man, I got the bathroom, you got the kitchen to rotate. But when you're the oldest, you're expected, you are given. And here's the other part. It's also trial by fire. And so sometimes you are just given responsibilities that you're not prepared for, or sometimes you're responsible for things you're like, bro, that ain't me. I used to say it all the time. I can't throw it to myself.
But Steve, you may even be prepared for it, but you still got to deal with it. It's still
you got to deal with it. And the first couple of games, you're like, all right. You get about 2-3 years, you're like, hey, bro, we ain't gonna keep having this, because the problem with keep having this is they come to you. They don't ever go to the office. Has the offensive coordinator been on the podium yet and they ask him, hey, what's going on with the passing game? No.
Well, in Philly, they did. I think it was every single question to Kellen Moore this past week.
But you know what I'm saying, though? Like, very rarely are you seeing the people who are drawing up the plays have to answer the questions. They go to the players a lot of the times, and sometimes the players, rightfully so, we say things we shouldn't. But we're only just talking about the things that affect us and how it affects us and what goes into the conversations behind closed doors. That he's not as fast as he used to be. Well, his numbers are down. Well, you ain't going to say, well, yeah, his numbers are down because our right tackle can't block a soul.
It's happening in Kansas City right now. You're getting explosive plays. Nobody can block anybody up front in terms of the tackle spot. So, Steve, I think with Philly, you see the kid in play. celebration after the touchdown.
Which was dope.
Pre-planned
because it was in Philly. It was dope.
It was pre-planned because AJ told us after it was our moment to tell you all to shut up. Which I think there were a lot of points the Eagles wanted to make in this game. If you tried to, and I did, I asked AJ this, I asked Smitty this. Was it important to put this out there on film for the other 31 teams that's going to take a look at you? And they didn't even care about that. No. That doesn't matter to us. The point was it was internal the more I asked around, and there were a lot of difficult conversations this past week. There was a lot said behind closed doors. A lot of guys got called out. I think you probably know who those guys are. And the goal was to make sure that person doesn't feel like they're being attacked, but X, Y, and Z has to change. This needs to be better. This needs to be better. When they found out they could have those conversations, go out there and put the production on the field that they were able to go and put out there against a team that was going to try to stop the run, and they just sat in single high essentially, and Jalen was able to pick them apart, play man against A.J. Brown all you want. It's not going to work out real well. They proved a point, and I think when you ask people in Philly, Steve, for it to happen in this week as opposed for it to continue to drag on, and then you got to maybe make the point to address this during the postseason, is probably something they didn't want to do.
That's dangerous.
Yes. So do you think now, with what they went through, they've won 10 straight now, and after winning 9 straight, they go through a week where they got to handle a lot of business off the field. Are they in a better spot now than they were, say, a week ago, considering they had to address this face on, and they were almost forced to, address it head on?
Yes. Because in the playoffs, that's the new season. Once the playoffs start, those selected teams are into their new season. And in the playoffs, that's where you see teams are tested the most. Now, AJ and those guys may say it doesn't matter about the 31 other teams, but it does matter about the playoff teams that you're going to play. You have to show them your ability to change game plans, to be able to be flexible, to show a team we can run the ball and beat you. We can also pass the ball and beat you. And by the way, we can pass the ball and run the ball and beat you. And so you don't make a team one-dimensional.
The part that I do want to bring up just real quick, you're able to throw the ball the way they threw the ball, and they weren't even really getting explosive plays. It was was given to them. It was just these slants, these in routes, They had Lane Johnson. The plan was, Steve, just to have him against T.J. Watt solo. And Lane Johnson can still play, man. He can still play.
And T.J. Watt ain't no cakewalk now.
No.
TJ was getting after it too now.
Philly's in a good spot. It was great to be in that locker room, and it's interesting to see how they handled it this week. There's been a lot of questions this year, Steve, about Nick Sirianni and his coaching style, how he's doing it. He answered a lot of them. I think Jalen Hurts answered a lot of them. I think A.J. Brown answered a lot of them. To close this up, the biggest takeaway I got from talking to so many people in that building and within that organization, it was this. They handled it like it was a business. Feelings didn't matter. How do we win football games? And they're in a really good spot right now.
Love it.